Ossabaw Island is Georgia's first heritage preserve. Spanning about 26,000 square acres, 1/3 of the island is high ground, home to pines, palms, magnolias, dogwood and giant holly trees, live oaks, and wild azaleas. The remaining 2/3 of the island is marshland laced with tidal creeks. Ossabaw Island once belonged to Dr. and Mrs. Henry Norton Torrey of Grosse Pointe, Michigan. In 1924, they purchased it for $150,000 and built a grand winter retreat on its eastern shore. But decades later, the property taxes became overwhelming, so in 1978, their daughter Eleanor sold the land to the Department of Natural Resources. Eleanor, now 96, still lives in the Spanish colonial revival-style house with her helper. When she passes away, the DNR will lease the island to the Ossabaw Island Foundation. The foundation will renovate the house back to its original grandeur and continue hosting educational events. Access to the island will remain limited so that its wildlife habitats and archaeological sites will continue to be preserved. On May 16th, I had the privilege of joining my neighbor, Barbara Fertig, in a birding trip to Ossabaw Island. She's a professor at Armstrong Atlantic State University, and she's documenting the history of the Pinpoint community. This community was founded by the African American members of the Hinder Me Not Baptist Church. This congregation was formed on Ossabaw Island during the 1870s and moved to the mainland in 1898 after a major hurricane. We started our trip by meeting others at the Delagal Marina in the Landings. Then it was a 7-mile ride on a pontoon boat. We landed at the dock on the north end of Ossabaw Island and walked down to the clubhouse, which was built in the late 1800s as a hunting cabin. From there, we climbed on a flatbed trailer pulled by a truck and headed down the road that runs the north-south length of the island. Our guide, Jim Bittler, pointed out that this is the oldest continuously used dirt road in America. It was created in the 1700s. The oaks that line it were planted in the 1800s. The forests around us now replace the cotton fields, which replaced the original maritime forest that was logged for shipbuilding. Soon we took a left turn to cross through several marsh flats. Our flock of bird watchers identified many feathered friends, including snowy egrets and blue herons. In areas where the tidewater shifted and killed stands of palm trees, woodpeckers feast on insects while others use the woodpecker holes as condos. Behind the chitter-chatter of birds and insects was the frequent clicks of camera lenses. Sadly, my camera limited me to up-close shots. Sometimes as we were watching nature looked back at us. Silly alligator thinks he can hide behind a bush. This yellow rat snake picked the wrong time to cross the road. A few ponds and a dozen pitchers later, we stopped for a self-serve lunch in the pine forest by Middle Beach. Afterwards, we headed towards one of the island's freshwater ponds formed by the artesian wells. Jim explained that the island once had more than a dozen wells, but most had dried up since large industries had tapped into the aquifer. As a result, there are fewer rookeries for breeding. At the Pine Barren Pond Rookery, egrets and endangered wood storks were busy with family life. These birds prefer to nest in trees over water so that alligators can keep away the raccoons. I wasn't able to get any pictures of the wood storks and their gangly offspring, or the other birds socializing in the far tree, but I could placate myself with photographs of the birders and the bird-watching stand. When we arrived back at the clubhouse, 2 free-ranging Sicilian donkeys came for a visit in hopes of getting tasty handouts. They're the offspring of some of the family pets brought to the island in 1965. They will be removed from the island because they're not indigenous. Ossabaw Island is also known for its wild pigs, progeny of those left behind by Spanish explorers centuries ago. Over the years, the pigs adapted to the island life, and now there are almost 1,000 of them. This one, named Paul Mitchell, was friendly with people because Eleanor had been hand-feeding him. Needless to say, he won't be on the menu for the fall pig roast. This roast helps pay for the impending renovation and the purchase of the contents of the house. In the sweltering late afternoon, we caught the pontoon boat back to the mainland, but not before the island captured my heart with its beauty and serenity. I will find a way back to Ossabaw Island.